I'm saying something. Something.
Say something in English.
Hi, Daniel. How are you today?
That's better. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do Real Singers on Singing, episode number. What is this?
I don't know. I don't watch a series. I'm not interested in it at all. I don't find it interesting.
I don't know what episode this is. Hold on, let me check. Gemma was the last one. I think she was 11. Right, so this must be number 12, I think. And my student, but better, actually, my friend. I call him my friend because I don't have a lot of friends.
Superior.
Luke decided he wanted to do, it's number 12. Real Singers on Singing, number 12. And Luke decided he wanted to ask me questions. And I thought that's funny because I don't know anything. So I thought this was going to be fun.
That's why I'm nervous. I even wrote like a whole bunch of questions.
No?
That I think the public need to know because you've got millions of listeners out there, Daniel.
Millions, actually.
Millions.
Yeah, no. I'm actually they're actually coming up with a new interwebs, and they're making a new interweb just for me because I've got so much traffic now.
Yeah.
I've exploded on the scene. Like it's ginormous.
Yeah, it's huge. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
There's a small country named after you now, I think.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
It's the Formica Islands. It's off the coast of Sicily. Formica. Yes.
All right.
So what's going on?
We're here with Danielle Formica. I think I'm saying that correctly.
Yeah, I'm suffering from a hangover, but I got coffee, so I'm doing all right.
That's all right. Anyway, I'd like to apologize for my accent. So I understand it's a little bit jarring for most people around the world.
God, it's disgusting. No, I mean, it's really nice. I really like your accent. It's good. I think it's a good accent.
It's a terrible accent. And I'm probably the last person that should be interviewing you because we're not very professional.
No.
When we get together, we're not very professional at all.
When I listened back to the one we did the other day, I couldn't release it because I was so drunk. I was in Vegas and it was bad. And I was slurring. I slur when I talk anyway. I was slurring and the sound was just kind of weird. So you couldn't even understand anything I said.
Well, I knew we were in trouble when you said, or when you asked, what was that thing that's like the small bar in your hotel room? It's a fridge, small bar, and it's not a big bar. What's the name of that thing? I thought,
I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was all over.
Oh God. So what did we talk about? What did we talk about on that?
We talked a lot about my wife. It was weird.
Yeah, she kept coming in the room. She's hot.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about Matt Corey.
Yeah, we went into a lot of deep-seated personal issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Actually, you know who's the last person that should be doing this? Matt Corey. Matt Corey is probably the last.
I wish I could get him in on this. We got to do where we do three of us.
I know that'll just hurt the next day. Yeah.
So,
all right.
What did we talk about? Let's go. Let's see.
You ready to start?
Let's start now. Real Singers on Singing. That's my new intro. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, pretty good, man. How are you? How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling excellent. Your accent seems to be even better than it's been.
It's all my little copyings of like Steve Perry and all the way that those guys talk.
Why are you talking way up here? Matt Corey likes to call and talk like this because he's super power hungry. He loves talking like way up here.
All right. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Hit me with some funny shit. Let's go.
I'm not going to hit you with funny shit because last time we did this, it went for 2.5 hours. We're not editing that down. All right. So what initially inspired you to sing? How did you get started with music?
I got a little drum pad when I was like in third grade, and I thought I wanted to play drums. But I ended up getting out of that, and then I got into it was around 8th grade, and I just did sports. I did stuff like that, and then I was about in 8th grade. I had a friend of mine, Greg Petrella, who's MIA, and I went to a dance at the 8th grade dance, and there was a band called Onyx playing, and I just saw the guitar player, and I was like, man, I want to do that. And Greg Petrella played guitar, so my mother's friend had an old acoustic, and I got the acoustic, and then I would go over to Greg Petrella's house, and his brother was into Jimi Hendrix and Robin Trower and the Rolling Stones, so he got us all into that music, and then I started learning from Greg how to play guitar. But even then, I always wanted to sing, but every time I tried to sing, someone would make fun of me, and I was like, I can't do this. It must be a natural thing. I can't do it. And then got into high school, had a band put together. It was like a small band, and my best friend Greg was the singer. And then we all took choir class, and we had Miss Benoit. So it was like 5 guys. I think Matt Corey took with us, and we were all in choir class together because it was all girls. So it was like, we'll take choir class. We'll learn how to sing. We get to hang out with all the girls. So we did that, and then I would bring her in, the Miss Benoit. I would bring in Journey and Judas Priest and Iron Maiden and Dokken and all the bands that we were listening to at the time, Whitesnake. And I would say, okay, can you teach Greg, our singer, or us how to sing like this? And she was like, oh, no, that's just screaming. They just scream. And I'm like, all right. So then I just figured, well, I can't scream. So I thought that was it. I was like, okay, I'm just a guitar player. So I thought you just had to have that. And we just, Greg would do his best to do what we could. And then, but I always wanted to sing. And then moved to LA with a band that I got in, and we went to LA and got a really good singer. And from him, his name was Desi. He was a great singer. And he was from South Central and just killer R&B singer. And just from rehearsing and, gigging with him, we were together for like 4 or 5 years in Los Angeles. And I learned a lot just from listening to him. Like he really, he had the whole soul thing down. And so I kind of learned a little bit. And then one time he made fun of me for singing a Rainbow tune. Shades of red, eyes of green, seeing black and white, and there's no in between. And when I would do in between, what's the song? The song was called Jealous Lover. And I would say that word in between, and I sounded like a little mouse. He's like, Danny, you got to sound like, put in between. And he was like, you got to put this bass into it. And I was like, oh, shit. So I'm just a mouse. I can't sing. But it was always in the back of my head. I wanted to, but I was like, there's no way it's going to happen. So then that band broke up around 94. And then I wanted to take voice lessons. And so I found a woman named Gloria Rush, who actually passed away. And she was a jazz singer, and her husband was a jazz piano who taught. He wrote a lot of books. I forget his name. But I chose her because she had some really good singers in her. Like, back then in L.A., everybody would list who they taught, who they coached, because there was Seth Riggs, Ryan Anderson was out there, everybody was out there. And so I chose her because she wasn't super expensive. But After 7, which was like this R&B group who I thought was really good, and the guys from Mr. Big, all studied with her. So I was like, I like Mr. Big. I love After 7, so I'm going to go. So I took 2 lessons, and I took those cassettes, and I drove cross country. That's when I moved back home, and I just asked my mother if I could move back in the house, and I moved into the basement, and I just practiced those tapes, which the exercises that I still do from those tapes were one where I would do like a yodel. She would have you go like, ha, 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 ha. And then one was just a falsetto head voice exercise, just going as low as you can go and as high as you can go. So I remember those. I still do those to this day. And then
before you even opened your mouth to actually attempt at singing properly, did you have a lesson first, or were you already trying? Like, what initially inspired you to take a lesson?
I said this, because the band broke up, and I had a feeling I was moving back to Connecticut, and I said, there was no voice teachers. I knew that in Connecticut. I was like, who am I going to go to? So I was like, I got to get a couple lessons in before I move. And I put together this little trio band. That's right, I forgot about this. It was me, my buddy Mike Sane, and Matt Franklin, and we did this little trio band. I kind of wrote off the old band. The band was Body and Soul. So the guys that used to book that band say, hey, can we play a couple shows? And we just did covers, but we did like Humble Pie, Rod Stewart, and that kind of stuff. So I would been practicing all the exercises, and then I would go and sing. We did like 2 gigs, I think, back then. That was in LA. And I blew out my voice like immediately. Like,
Yeah.
And I was always singing harmonies. Like, but for some reason, when I went to lead sing, voice just went gone. And I was like, whatever, that must come with the territory, but keep taking these lessons. I took, like I said, 2 or 3. Then I moved back to Connecticut. And I said, well, I'm going to learn how to sing like my favorite singer. So I learned like Otis Redding tunes, Sam Cooke, just the basic ones, Sitting on Dock of the Bay, You Send Me, Having a Party, Rod Stewart, Maggie May, tunes like that. And I put together about 20 songs on acoustic. A friend of mine owned a bar, and I just started playing on Tuesdays. And then my buddy Matt and this other kid Richie said, "Hey, we'll be in your band." Actually, a bass player too. And then we did 1 gig, and the bass player was just a dick, and we just said, "You're out." So we just ended up being drums, keyboard, and guitar, and we called it Toe Jam.
Yes, sweet.
Yeah.
And how intense were you about learning these initial 20 songs? Like, did you learn all the licks, all the runs, trying to get as close to the original artist as possible?
I try to at least go, and I still have this mentality, and I say to all my students, I'm always like, listen, this is something I've been saying a lot. If you don't like your voice, that's okay. You don't have to like your voice. As a matter of fact, and I'll say this, any singers that I know, the real good ones, the really good singers that I know that are just excellent, they don't like their voice. None of them.
Yeah.
They hate their voice. Then there's like the mediocre, not so good singers that I know that work, they're gigging singers and they work, and they love their voice, and you'd be, surprised. You'd be like, ooh, God, like you wouldn't like their voice, sort of. You know what I mean? Yeah. So my mentality on that is, anyone that really loves their voice, they have a mental disability. Something's going on in there. Like, to me, that's what I think. So
the opposite of like voice dysmorphia.
Yeah, it's just kind of weird. To me, it's just some kind of mental handicap. I don't know what it is. So for me, I didn't like my voice. I knew I couldn't do all the licks and runs of all these guys. The older R&B guys didn't do that many licks and runs. But so I just said, as long as I can match the pitch and the melody, don't worry about how I sound. Just try to get as close to them as what I thought what I was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I would put this one ear, I would put an earphone in, and then I would pretend their voice was coming out of my mouth to really try and mimic them. And that was huge. And then, I did that to learn those songs. I did that, and I always kept doing the exercises. And then somebody gave me the first Seth Riggs tapes. There was a cassette tape, and somebody gave me that. And then I got involved in a band called a company called Perfect World Entertainment that had bands all over the country, and they were auditioning in New York, and I got involved in that, and that was singing all the disco, which turned out to be later on M80, Spasmatic, Metal Shop. That was the later bands, but at first it was all disco, Boogie Nights and Boogie Fever, Night Fever, Aphrodisiacs, whatever we called it in the area. And that was like really hard singing because I had to sing mostly girl tunes. It was a lot of girl tunes.
Yeah. So how long did you cut your teeth for back in Connecticut with your trio before you made the move and said, okay, I'm good enough to go and audition for these?
Yeah, that was about 3 years, I think. It was about 3 years with the Toe Jam thing. And then I was working at the music store, teaching guitar lessons and selling guitars, whatever. And then one of the kids, Mike Simonetta, I love saying last names from back east, he came in with the Village Voice, and he said, hey, remember that band, the Boogie Nights? And I had remembered them. They were called Roxanne. There was an original band that we used to play with. My band would play with them. I go, yeah, they started this disco show, and they're auditioning in New York. And I was like, oh, man, they make money. I would love to get involved. So there was a guitar player from a band called Tongue and Groove that I met, and we were just starting to put something together, like a soul band. And I said, hey, come to this audition with me in New York. And so we went to the audition on like a Monday. We went back on a Wednesday for like a head cutters, and they were just choosing guys. And then I got in one of the bands, and then I gigged with that for about 4 years on the East Coast. But I had I had 2 subs. This kid who's great, his name was John, and this other guy named, oh my God, what was his name? How could I forget his name? Raj and John were my 2 subs. They were in New York, and Raj was like a prince. He was a really good entertainer, slick, and John was just, to me at that time, one of my favorite singers. He was so good. Actually, I got to send you some stuff of him. He lives in LA now, and I'm always sending him notes on Facebook. Will you please do a live show? Because I love this kid's voice. Like one of the coolest voices. And I was just asking, like, dude, how'd you get so good? And he goes, you talk like this now. I listened to Stevie Wonder as a kid. Like, and I wanted to be Stevie Wonder. And then he said at one point he sounded too much like him, so he started to change his tone. Yeah. You know, and he had a very rich voice, but I really liked his voice a lot. And but they were making, Raj was making more money than me because I would do a Thursday gig, a Friday gig, and then I'd blow my voice out. Raj, you got to do Saturday and Sunday or whatever, because I was gigging like 4 or 5 nights a week. And then I'd be like, have to stay home, rest my voice. Okay, next week's up, do it again. And sometimes I'd make it, sometimes I wouldn't, and I didn't know. I wasn't a screamer, I wasn't a yeller, but I wasn't doing something right. And that kind of never changed. That did never change after all the lessons I took from you name it, from Ron Anderson to Seth Riggs to Dave Stroud to Joel Hewing to Alex Kariotis, to everyone I took from. I always kind of used the same setup because I thought I was being gentle, but in the end I found out there was something I was missing. And when I figured out what I was missing, I was like, oh my God, if I could have got that 20 years ago, I would have been a much better singer.
Yeah. So you were taking lessons during all this time to try and get in shape for these gigs as well?
No, I just had the tapes that I had. There was no one to take from. No, there was no, there was teachers in New York, like Don Lawrence, but he was really hard to get into at the time. Yeah. And I got some tapes from someone that took from Don Lawrence too back then, and it was just kind of hard to get in, with him, and he was super expensive anyway, and I couldn't afford it back then. And so no, I just used the tapes that I had. Then I moved to Atlanta. Then I started making more money doing it, and I moved to Atlanta to start a band, and I met a jazz singer named Dee Knapp, and I think she passed away too. And she helped me a lot. I took for her about 6 months while I was living there every week. And then I moved to Chicago, did the Chicago band, and I took from an older guy, and I don't remember his name. He gave me a few lessons and, some things, but it didn't matter, really, because then when I got back out to L.A. in 2001 or 2, still doing the disco and the 80s gigs and all that, then I started taking from everybody because I was making money, Yeah.
It was when you hit LA, you started running around after all the big names.
Everybody I could take from, And it was like big names, small names, Nate Lamb, which was, James Lugo, who's a vocal coach, told me, hey, go to Nate. Nate's great. So I went to Nate Lamb. And I think Coverdale had studied with him. Rod Stewart studied with him. He studied with Keith Davis. Nate Lamb did, that was Seth's main guru. Yeah. Can't find anything on Keith Davis nowadays. But then I studied with everybody, and I got, involved in the whole, I never become like a SLS teacher, but I was always at the studio, at Seth's house, listening to people study, meeting people. And so I got real into it. Mm. But, and then I was just gigging a lot, but still always, always not happy,
Yeah. When you were taking from these teachers, were you looking to become a better singer or just more consistent?
More consistent, because I think the better singer comes from how much you sing.
Yeah. And that's with songs, not exercises.
Yeah, think about a guitar player. Do you ever meet a prodigy guitar player? Mm. They just have it. They could just, they're I remember when I was a kid, when I first started playing guitar, I was 14. And I met Baloo Saraceno, who was 11. He lived in the same town, the town over. So his dad introduced us. And he was just amazing. But he had been around music, playing music, since his dad was a blues player. I mean, they named him Blues. I mean, it's he had been around it since he was a kid. And singing was that. I think a lot of people, when students call me and they're, how long is this going to take? Well, the technique is just something you always continue if you're, if you need it. You always I always like to warm up. Some singers don't have to warm up, but I always warm up. And that's my exercise. And then the singing comes from putting that speaker in your ear and singing it over and over. I can't tell you the amount. I cannot tell you the amount of times I had Maxwell in my ear, Luther Vandross in my ear, Donny Hathaway in my ear. These singers just constantly going through trying to mimic, what's he doing? Why is he getting this lower tone? And why do I sound so mousy? And it was just, I mean, that's, and I wish I want to get that again. You know, I haven't had that now for a while. I just kind of went through doing the Steve Perry stuff. I never really tried to cop Steve Perry's. I don't think you can, but I just got a gig singing with Ainsley Dunbar, who's the original drummer. And so I get to sing all Journey in a Whitesnake tune. So I just want to do the Whitesnake I've done before in Metal Shop. But with the Journey stuff, it was always just one song, 2 songs with wedding bands. But I'm really trying to, how's he staying up there this long? And I've really kind of got a new spark. And now I want another one. Now I'm like, okay, what's my next little... I think you got to have that drive, like, to want to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you feel the shift between the Whitesnake stuff and the Journey stuff?
Do I what?
Do you feel the shift, like in technique or where you are in your voice?
Just depending on where the song sits. So in this band that I'm doing, we do separate ways. I learned it in E minor, like the record, but when I got to sound check, they had put it in D minor because of the other singers that had been before me. Yep. So they didn't want to raise the key, and I said, that's fine. I figured, it should be easier in D minor. It's a whole step lower. But it was actually way harder because of where the split is. So singing, for instance, we do Wheel in the Sky. That feels really good to me because I'm in one spot the whole song. I don't fall out of that spot. Yep. But singing this lower separate ways one, it's kind of like I got to go into my speaking voice. Then I jump to mixed voice. And then I jump to my speaking voice. So you got to get the shift pretty quick. And if you don't have the right, to me, it's the breath. If the breath ain't right, it's not carrying it down to the lower one or up to the higher one, right? If you're not carrying that switch the right way with the breath, appoggio for Alex. Yeah. Appoggio. If that's not, that's what I notice. That's when I finally noticed what appoggio was. Like I finally, if that ain't right, the whole thing gets blown apart. It's kind of weird. But I find, like, on Wheel in the Sky, I love it. I love just because I just sit in one spot. And once I'm warmed up and I'm in that spot, it's like, it's nice, Can
you talk about the squillo?
Squillo.
Sorry, we're already getting into a little bit of technique stuff, but that's okay. That's why we're here. We're here to learn from a professional singer about how he thinks about technique.
So this is kind of cool. So the squillo for some schools, I think, and I get it, come from the medial compression, the squeeze of the vocal cords. So some people say their squillo comes from the squeeze of the cords, right? Yep. But studying with Alex, he was more, it comes from like the nasopharynx. So we would do exercises where it's kind of behind the nose. It's not in the nose, but it's like right behind it. So we would do, it's kind of like humming with the mouth open. It's a Burton Coffin thing. We would do things like that as opposed to going, where it's kind of dull. You kind of put your hand, and then you got that squealo. You could hear that buzz,
Yeah.
So he would say, everything's got to be there. Everything's got to be there. Everything's got to be there. But I could still see like how those old school, some singers say, my squealo, a lot of the classic singers say it comes from the little squeeze of the vocal cords. I could see that.
Yeah.
I get that. You know what I mean? Because if that's in a good position and it rings out, it brings out another little ring in the voice. So.
And when you were learning this is before you knew about all this stuff. Like when you were doing the Donny Hathaway versus Sam Cooke or Jolene Turner versus Steve Perry, could you feel like, was there a difference when you were doing those things?
No, back then there wasn't any difference. Uh-huh. That wasn't until I figured out for me, and again, everybody has their way, but when I took from Seth, even in my lessons, Seth would say to me, I got it, I wish I could bring it up really quick, but he'd even say in the lesson, Daniel, you have this facility in your voice where I can't tell if you're in mix or like a reinforced falsetto. And he goes, that could be trouble. He kind of would mention that could be troublesome for you because it was hard for me to feel. But I didn't really feel what mix was until I sat down and made a conscious decision not to work. So I stopped singing for gigs for about 6 months. And I trusted as something that I called that I knew about in the day, that I called my fake opera man voice. I always knew there was something in that because I would use that for all the AC/DC and Chris Cornell. I would use this fake opera man voice for that tone, just add rasp to it. Yep. But I wouldn't sing with it because I would go, that's just a trick. I'm just doing a trick in my throat. It wasn't until I realized that trick was actually medial compression in the way that things were supposed to happen for me. And I don't care, what other people say or what they feel. Like they'll say, you should feel nothing in the throat. well, I feel it in my throat. Maybe that's because I was singing one way my whole life, and now I learned. And so I don't feel it in my throat as much as I did 6 months ago. So maybe a year from now, I don't feel nothing.
Gone.
Yeah, but, you know, when I would show my old teachers, when I would show Seth or Ron or Joel or Alex, and I'd say, what's this? I call this my fake opera man. I would do it, and they go, well, yeah, that sounds very good. What are you doing there? And I go, well, I'm kind of putting like a little squeeze in it right here. And they go, oh, don't do that. No, don't squeeze. So again, I shied away from it. And then when I was starting to make this discovery, and I always kind of had it, but like when I started to kind of implement it, I went to visit my daughter in Spain. She was on a leave, going to school for a semester. And I decided to study with an opera singer over there, an old school opera singer. And I kind of tricked him. I said, well, I wasn't getting the exercise right. And then I said, all right, I'm just going to do fake opera man, see what he says. And I did it. And he was like, that's perfect. That's great. You know, he didn't speak English. That's it. And I was like, yeah, but it feels, and I made like a gesture. It feels like here, tight throat. And he goes, yes. But in 2 months, no. And I was like, really? And he's like, yes. He's like, that's perfect. Do it again. And I did it again. He's like, well, I can keep doing that. So then I realized what I say now, like my little way of describing it's like all singing is to me is air versus squeeze. Too much squeeze, not enough air, it's not going to be good. Too much air, too little squeeze, too much air, like not good. There's a balance. And when you find that balance, that's what's working. But when you're going through, you know, I went through all those exercises for years, you know, never knowing what the squeeze was, but I was able to thin my chest voice out just enough to an A or a B flat and then meet it down with my falsetto, which was very strong, and connect those two things, which in turn I think some people consider that a mixed voice, but that was not what I'm doing. And that's not what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
You know, by any means. And it's super important to me.
Back, like after you discovered all this stuff, do you reckon all those teachers had a common goal? Like out of the 50 odd teachers that you had lessons with, were they all trying to get you to the same spot using the same type of material?
Yeah, because, well, you know, I'll say this because, you know, Seth I loved to death. He was super sweet dude, super passionate about the voice. I always really liked him. I really like, you know, Dave Stroud's a very good friend of mine. I really enjoyed studying with them. You know, Ron Anderson will say that he'll bash. There's the bashers of Seth and the bashers of these guys, you know, whatever, SLS, whatever you want to say. And I'm not an SLS proponent. I think it's vocal technique is vocal technique. When you find it for yourself and you find this technique, you kind of get, oh, now I get what Seth was trying to get me to do the right way, but I was able to fool with the sound I could make, you know? And then, but Ron Anderson, he would just bash Seth every lesson, just bash. And then come to find out, Ron Anderson was like an 8-year student of Seth Riggs. So when he bashes Seth, he's really bashing himself. He's a classical piano player, so he would just do different scales, where Seth always uses the same Rossini scale, the octave arpeggio scale, 5-tone scale, then a mixed arpeggio scale. Ron would do other things instead.
Yeah,
he would do 9-tone scale. He would do some crazy scale, you know. But all in all, it's now looking back, even though I was doing the exercises wrong and they couldn't hear it, now I can use everybody's stuff to my benefit.
Yeah, that's right.
Because I have this underlying idea of thing that I believe was correct, and I go, oh, now this all makes sense. It makes everything easy. It makes everything now I can build, and I was able to build my voice a lot faster. You know, instead of people saying to me, oh, it'll take you about 4 years, you know, you're just getting it now, and I'd be like, nah. No, and then when I kind of figured all this out, like you'll hear students will say, I have a tight jaw, I have a tight tongue, you know, underneath the diaphragm, underneath my chin is tight, my larynx is shooting up. Well, to me, when I learned this function, what I call fake opera man, but then cultivated it, all of that went away because I had tight jaw for years. But as soon as I just do this, it went away in a day. Not 4 years, not learning it, getting better at it. It just was gone. So between the arpeggio and that, it was like, boom, I got the floodgates open. Now I got to learn to sing with it. That was the tricky part. But if you're diligent, you practice like I do. I'm just a maniac, you know.
Yeah.
So
with Alex, did him putting because he talks about registers, and you've obviously told me about the registers. Can you talk a little bit about that and how all that was organized and where it came from, and if it like how important that was to you as well?
So Alex is awesome because he got to study at Manus College with Dan Merrick, who studied and worked a lot with Burton Coffin when Burton Coffin was coming up with his whole method and technique of the registers and everything. But Alex also got to study with Pavarotti's teacher, Pola. He got to know Pavarotti. He got to study with Raimondi. He got to know Bergonzi. Like, he was in the thick of it, which was really cool. But he was able to take the Appoggio that he learned from Pola and then the Burton Coffin technique and combine it, And so the vowels, like, what did you want to, like, the registers? So the whole idea behind it is, that's a beautiful coffee pot. What are you, 1924? What the? Whatever.
You're an Italian. You should be appreciating this.
No, I know. That thing's really cool. That thing's like burly, dude. Is that a percolator? What is it?
Yeah, it's a percolator.
Wow. Yeah, that's nice.
That's how your ancestors used to do it back in the old country. It's probably how your dad still does it.
So the registers, or the way they look at it. So it's real simple. It's real simple.
Simple, not easy.
If the underlying function of everything is doing what it's supposed to do. So here's the idea. Again, when I was studying with Alex, I was able to do things with my voice because I practiced a lot. I was never doing the underlying function of my voice was wrong. But he would teach me about the registers. And what he would say about the registers is, depending on the vowel you're singing. So I used to have a mantra, and I still do, pitch, vowel, intensity. And he would always be like, the vowel and the pitch equal the register. I add intensity in there because if you sing very soft, you could be in falsetto or head voice or whatever you want to call it, and then lean into that place, and all of a sudden it's mixed voice. So it could be your intensity too. So that's what makes that technique really cool. Is
you're doing this without a top on, by the way.
What's that?
I like that you're doing this without a shirt on.
It's sexy, huh?
Oh, Jesus.
Jesus. I don't have pants on. I don't have pants on either. So, the pitch and the vowel equal the register. What they mean by that is, so on a vowel on a note, say like F sharp 4, right? Everyone's troublesome area, say for tenors and baritones and stuff. That right there, if you sing an oo vowel, forte, good volume. If you sing a closed o vowel like boat, you'll be in mixed voice. But if you sing an open like a UH or an something like that, you're going to be in upper chest, which is just like shouty chest. I consider it. You got your chest voice where I'm speaking from. You could hear that, and then you got your kind of like where your kind of shout from. It just gets a little bit louder. It's a little bit different than sits above chest. Then you've got mixed voice. Then there's one that starts around where mixed voice does too, right around the same area, but it doesn't really kick in until the higher notes, like around B flat. It's really good for the Steve Perry and the rock, and it's a thinner place. It's they call it vowel register, and it's just and I love showing. I'm not going to do it now probably, but when you could show the difference on like a B flat, like an E vowel or an A vowel in mixed voice, as opposed to like if I go to A or even I. It just pings. It takes the bottom end out of the voice, but it goes zing. It's like a real zingy, and that's where you kind of. I don't feel much a different in my throat or anything, but you hear the difference. The bottom end kind of drops out, and you get this more of a zingy sound. So a lot of the opera singers, up to around C sharp, a tenor sings in mixed. That's how you get those big operatic tenor voices. But above that, sometimes you'll get an aria that's hits a high F or a high E or a D, an E flat. Things like that, they're in vowel register up there. That sound that you hear, very zingy, is that. And then
Sorry.
No, good.
No, I was just going to ask, is that the reason why when the new band that you're singing for keyed down separate ways, was because it took it down to that area where there's 3 different options where you can sing?
Yeah, and the thing was I was used to keeping it in mixed voice and like trying to keep the whole thing in like a thinner mixed voice, not an operatic mixed voice, but it's like a thinner vowel register and mixed voice. So the high notes, like, because the high notes would be B, A, and G for you, or vein, whatever it is, those notes. So those would be vowel register. My mouth would be wide open and it'd be very zingy. I love the feeling of it. I could sit on it. But what happened was when you brought those down and now it's A, G, and F, but then the notes beginning are the low A, I have to start in chest and upper and then switch. Whereas the other ones, I was starting on like a B, E, F sharp, the first three notes. That I could actually, if I just pull off the voice, I could be in mixed voice. So all I do is sing a little bit softer. And then as I'm off to the races when I hit the high notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And with, like, just so the girls can get something out of this as well, what about with their registrations? Where does it sit for all that? It's like, is it the same exercises but brought up a fifth, or?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, for girls that are singing pop and rock, like that kind of thing, can use the same exercises. Like I use a lot of times the same exact places for them. Sometimes if their voice seems a little bit higher and they're not having any issues, up to because they usually get their issue around B flat, B, C, somewhere in that area. If they're not having issues before that, if I notice that seems to, then I'll just, a lot of it's almost the same. Very, very similar places. Yeah, everything's very, very close. It's not whereas with Seth and that they do it where their break is there and then the guy's break is the F sharp. But with this technique, it's a little bit different, but pretty much the same, really. It all depends how hard the singer sings, I think. I think it's the intensity of the singer.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah. So you'd be able to demonstrate women's songs, no worries.
Yeah. Just yesterday I was working with a really good singer. Her name's Crystal Diaz. She's from China. And she was doing a lesson, and she wanted to sing that I Am Nothing by Whitney Houston. And, I was singing right along with her, and I love it. I actually love that spot. Like, that's a fun area,
Yeah. Well, when I take lessons with you, I don't think you've ever backed out of singing anything.
And I think if I did, and I probably did if I had a rough day, I don't much anymore. Now I'm even more, my warm-up is shorter, and I'm more inclined to sing everything. It's much easier now. I don't crack anymore. I don't have really, because I kind of figured out this little underlying function that I was missing. It put everything together for me. So like sometimes I would back away, but I think if I was to back away for me, and not for other vocal teachers, but for myself, I'd be doing a disservice to my student and to myself, because I didn't get into singing to be a teacher.
Yeah.
I still would much rather perform. I love teaching, but I still want to sing too. I still want to be out there and sing, and I don't like having any kind of obstacles. I like, and that's what I loved about studying with Alex, because he was the first coach I went to out of all the coaches I studied with. He was the first coach I studied with that would sing everything. It didn't matter, and that to me, I was like, when I grow up, I want to be like him.
Because I was kind of there when I think you almost not discovered, but like you were at that point where you had put everything together, and you would go between Lights by Journey and Rainbow in the Dark by Dio,
right.
And you would do both acoustic, and you sang them both full voice, and it was perfect.
Oh, that's cool.
Like, it was scary,
so
man.
Nice. You're so nice to me.
I know. I'm sorry about my diphthongs. See how much Danny had to work with me? He had to get me out of diphthongs. He had to get me out of so much stuff. He had to change the entire way that I spoke.
Yeah.
But like, even when you were bad, man, when you were going through that bad period with your back, you still sang Bryan Adams. Like, you hate doing it, but you still did it.
Yeah.
And that's tough stuff, because that all sits around that E to A4 area, right in that bridge.
Yeah.
You never backed off, and I was always like, Jesus Christ, I want to be Danny.
Yeah.
I want to be Danny.
I think that's just because I'm a singer first. Like, I'd be mad. Like, 'cause I get around singers, my favorite singers like Joe Retta and Greg Scott and these guys that I know very well, and those guys are just I want to be them. Like they're monsters.
Oh.
So I would feel, and if a student came to me and I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do that. That happened to me a couple times. I just be like, why am I here? Shouldn't I be learning? And then there's the other school of thought, and they're like, no, the teacher doesn't have to sing. But I don't know. Alex puts it this way, and I kind of agree with him. Like, you wouldn't go to a violin teacher that didn't play the violin. Yeah. So I kind of come from that school. Like, I hope, and I think that's just because, like anything. Like you in Muay Thai, you go to Muay Thai class, and you got to show them how to, fight.
For those that don't know, Daniel is completely mocking me at the moment.
You're the only guy I know that does Muay Thai and tennis. That's just bizarre.
I'm an athlete. I just never stop. I'm an extremely well-rounded human being. That's all it is. I take them from the best, buddy. I take them from you. If I could, I'd take lessons from Roger Federer. But unfortunately, with singing, I'm stuck with you.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. But that was no light decision. That was after, that was 18 months of looking for a teacher going, oh, my God, who am I going to get? And I looked around Australia and I wasn't impressed with anyone.
No.
I was like, nah, it's gone. And then I found something and that worked for a while. And then I hit a wall with it. And then we had a 15-minute consultation that lasted 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just opened up everything for me.
What is it that opened? Like, what do you feel like was the one of the main things I helped you with?
The squillo. The squillo. I think that opened up everything for me. It was just like, where you sing is not, well, for some people it actually, we'll get into that.
Okay.
All right. Because this sort of relates to this anyway. Who are some of the singers that you consider just to be technical beasts? Like, without even probably knowing that. Like, you can include your friends.
I'm going to say, Alex Cariotis, the most technical monster I know is him, for sure. Because, he can bounce and sound amazing on an aria, like, amazing. And I've seen him do it. We've been out drinking all day, eating tacos, and he'll just nest and dormer for someone, and just beautiful. It's right on. And then he'll turn around and sing, Journey tunes, to really bounce back between those two things that fast. Boom, 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 and do them both legit. That was super impressive. That's him, Joe Retta. I've known Joe for a very long time, and I was fortunate to how I met him on a gig I play guitar for him. That's how I met him, and he's just a monster. He's great. Greg Scott, I think, is phenomenal. And, I've interviewed them. Gemma, my friend Gemma, I'm looking at a picture of her right now from the video we did. Awesome. Yeah. Gemma's great. Very technical. Super technical, but she sings really well. Yeah. She's not just someone that's technical. Who else?
What about some rock stars? Any rock stars?
That I think are really... Terrence Trent D'Arby's my favorite. I wouldn't call it technical, though. I don't know what you would call that. Right? Just the beast. Like, that's my... What
about Donny Hathaway?
Oh, singers that I love. Yeah, then you can just go down the list. Yeah, Donny Hathaway. Absolutely love him to death. Stevie Wonder, Donny Hathaway, Terrence Trent D'Arby, known as Sananda Maitreya. Those are my favorites. Sam Cooke.
Yeah, there you go.
Hands down favorite. I know. Yeah. I didn't know you were meaning that. I thought you meant people that I knew that were great technical singers, but
no.
My favorite singers.
Yeah, so other people can look up. I mean, they can go look up Joe and they can go look up Greg Scott as well, because those two are scary. When you showed me those guys, I just wanted to give up. I was like, man, that's like Joe's frightening. Yeah. And Joe, like, I was lucky enough. You got him on the phone for me one day.
Yeah.
And we had a lesson on Donny Hathaway.
Yeah.
And just because he's never taken a lesson, has he?
Nope.
He's never taken a lesson. He's never read a book. And everything that guy said during that lesson, he found on an instinctual level in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And he could explain it. And it was just like, well, that's perfect. That's exactly what, series of books by Burton Coffin is all about.
Yeah.
And he explained it in 5 minutes. He took about 5,000 pages and condensed it into 5 minutes worth of work.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah,
he's one of my favorites for sure. And knowing him is really cool, and just seeing him sing. I mean, he's actually gotten better since I've known him. That's what's silly. I've seen him even get better, which is that's just bizarre. You know, he's just so good. Brian Mcknight was someone I really listened to a lot, like back in the day. Luther Vandross was someone I listened to a lot back in the day. Yeah. Those were two I really listened. I mean, Rod Stewart, Steve Marriott, huge influence. Like in my early first, Steve Marriott, Paul Rogers, Rod Stewart, like that was big. When I was listening to Sam Cooke, then I realized, all these guys like Sam Cooke. Like
that's right. It's just this massive lineage from one guy for everyone singer. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's just scary. It's like the Italian thing, There's this lineage of like the bel canto stuff, and then you got the contemporary guys are all, you trace it all back to Sam Cooke and Donnie and Stevie Wonder.
Yeah, I mean, like Stevie Wonder too. If there's someone, I always tell people, you want to listen to someone and not take lessons and just try and mimic, Stevie Wonder.
Yeah,
I say it all the time. Like he just, he did study, and he, I think he had voice problems, and that's how he met Seth. And then he studied, but he got it really quickly. So he still goes through. I don't know if he studies anymore, but he just goes through his exercises. I know that. There's something on YouTube you can find him warming up, and he still does it, and he goes to the right place. Now it's probably, obviously it's instinctual from now. But that's that. He's someone that if you try to, like my buddy John mimicked him as a kid, he said that's how he learned to sing.
Yeah.
And I wish I did, And
they've all got this thing in their voice when they talk, like all these guys. Do you want to talk
Russell
about that?
White? We didn't even say Russell White. We didn't even say Russell White. He's like one of my. See, there's so many favorites.
He's the guy that, like, you sit there drinking wine, watching on YouTube for hours on end, and that's why you're probably hungover today.
I mean, Russell White here. Ready? Let's see if it'll play through this.
Ugh.
Pass me now, Shinto say, Savior, hear my humble cry. Please don't pass me by. No, 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 no. Do not pass me by. Hallelujah, Jesus. When you open up the windows of heaven and you start passing your blessings, I don't want you to pass me by, because I want you to know I'm in need. I'm in need of a blessing right now. Yeah. I don't want to sound selfish tonight, but oh God, I don't know about my neighbors. I don't even know about my friends, but I know I need you. Oh, I need you. Yeah. Oh.
It's just for you.
This is about
everybody.
Daniel
I
now.
just
It's
wanna
not
take
about
the
Russell
time to
White.
say
Listen to
thanks
Russell
for even
talk,
taking
right?
that time just to
Got a
look
beautiful
at my
voice,
videos.
and then it sounds
Hello,
like his
everybody. I just want to take that time to say thanks for even taking that time just to look at my videos and the wonderful responses that you guys have been giving me. I just want to thank God for you and just sing a little bit of a cappella song. This is the Lord's Prayer.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's right. And that's what I wanted you to talk about, just a common thread between the way all these guys talk. Like Donny Hathaway's got that, Joe Redder's got that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Cooke's got that.
Yep.
It's like this. You explain it.
I can't explain it other than it sounds. It's like obviously their throat is and people would say, well, they sound like they're hurting their voice, but their throat is actually like relaxed. To me, it sounds like they're just and they're relaxed, but then the closure that they have with their chords is making it's in the right place. So they're never speaking from a different place than they're singing. That's you know what I mean. And you know, and on the Seth tip, you know, they said speech level singing. He actually, what he meant wasn't sing like you speak. He actually meant speech level posture, meaning if I'm talking to you and I mute this thing and I sing a high note, my face and my body should look no different than when I'm talking to you at a normal speech level.
Yeah.
And you don't change that. And that was another big click, because once I was able to do that or started doing that for myself, and then all of a sudden, it was weird. Everything kind of hit at once, because I hadn't picked up that book in 20 years. And I picked up the book and I was reading through it as I'm going through this change. And I'm like, he says it right there, exactly what I'm feeling. And that whole thing is, you don't change your posture, your face, everything, and then you realize, oh, that's when the appoggio kicks in. Like, if you're not going to move all this, appoggio kicks in, and you don't move anything. So that made a huge difference in my singing. And then it was between that, and there was a thing in the Great Singers on Singing. It's a book where I got the name for this podcast, Real Singers on Singing. It's called Great Singers on Great Singing. Yep. And Pavarotti talks about, the first 5 or 6 months, it feels squeezed. You don't like it. If you're in the right place, it feels squeezed. It feels awful. You get red in the face. So most singers won't go down that road. They think it's wrong. But he goes, but if you don't go down that road, you will never get security in the voice. And I read that as I was going through this whole, my own little change thing. And I was like, there it is. So that's when I really started to dig in. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to dig hard. And I just went hardcore. And then I came out the other side. And I was like, it only took a few months. And I was able to sing. I was never able to sing Journey with the security that I have now in my voice. Like, never. I could sing it, but I felt very insecure. A lot of times it was very flat and not right. To me, not right. Didn't have the power. Like when Joe Redder would sing, it would have all this power. I was like, I don't have that at all. Like, how could I be missing that? And then I found out what I was missing, and kind of worked out a lot. So,
yeah, I think the other thing that really helped me was you showing me how these guys talked. Do you know what I mean? And then like it was with I've forgotten his name. The Journey tribute.
Yeah. Ryan Christopher. So good.
Yeah, scary good at Journey. And he did like a little impression of like, I don't know, it was like his promoter or something like that. It was basically a character voice of a woman. And he put his voice in that spot, and that just sounded like Steve Perry.
Right.
And as soon as I heard that, I was like, well, that's because I can't speak like I sing. Like, obviously, for anyone listening to this podcast, I'm really sorry. But
it's such a sexy accent.
It's not around here. It's not. My wife does not care. You know what? When she walks into the kitchen and then you say, hey, girl, hey. I mean, hey, girl, hey. That's how you talk. Sorry, I forgot that. But yeah, he did it. He put his voice in this little spot up here. And I was just like, it's almost speaking in mixed voice.
Yeah. And
once you can find that little spot, that just opens up all the high range stuff. Everything from Sam Cooke, even Donny. Like, Donny's not like a super high singer.
No.
But his mixed voice is just so beautiful. It's
And his speaking voice is such a trip, man. There's an interview on YouTube you can find with Donny Hathaway speaking, and it's a trip. It's like the Sam Cooke voice When Sam would
Yeah.
talk, it's a different. It's almost like their vocal cords are different. It's they're it's really strange. It does not come from the same place where I talk from, and I explain it being from the East Coast, Connecticut, and you're close to Boston and you're close to New York, and you got to pack the car and you got to. See, I talk. It's like I'm squeezing. It's bad.
Yeah,
So I'm always on it. I hate it. But I mean, I've been doing this my whole life. I can't really change that. So that's why I warm up. So when I warm up, it gets me out of that.
Yeah.
You know?
Which probably explains why, like, Joe doesn't, like Joe Redder, he doesn't really need to warm up because it's just any time that he speaks.
Yep.
It's just like, I'm ready to go because, and yeah, that relates to my next question because I already know the answer to this. But do you use different artists and songs to work different parts of your voice? Like Joe does? Like Joe will use, that tune I Surrender by Rico.
And then he'll do the deal one.
Yeah.
No, I just warm up. I do the register warm ups, so I know each part of my voice is getting warmed up.
Yeah.
And then I just pick songs that I'm working on that day. Like if I want to work on something new or just sing through the Journey set, which I do a lot because I think that makes me stronger. That's hard stuff to sing, so I just go for it. But I'm going to start going back now. I want to start going back to the old days, like listening to a lot of Brian Mcknight again and see if I can bring that into the new way that I sing.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be, it's going to be a little difficult because it goes lower. They sing lower. Luther sings lower. So it'll be a trip. I mean, I think it's just a speed thing. How fast can you get in and out of mixed voice in the chest? How fast can you switch, And I think that's what I need right now because I kind of, not conquered, but I got this going really well again in my life. So I'm like super happy with it. But I want to get on to the next thing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to talk about, Danny?
I don't know.
We covered everything in an hour today. Last time it took 2.5, so that's pretty good.
I was so drunk.
Yeah,
dude, I was slurring so bad. It was so funny listening back to that. I couldn't believe it.
It was a shock.
Yeah, shocker.
It was.
But no. We covered everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope I think I've got 3 million viewers now. I hope they all listen.
That was an extra 0. I thought it was 30 million.
Could be. Now, it's been a week since I checked, so we could be up to about 30 million.
Your name's going to be up there in lights as well. Danielle Formica.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe 1 billion. 1 billion. That's my goal.
Just India. India is all subscribed to you now.
Yep. I'm working on it. Yep. Yeah. I talk too much and then my voice could go way down here. Yeah. I'll go to the country gig.
Yeah. I already know the answer to this, but singers that are just aliens, like guys that you just can't do.
I know Terrence and Darby.
Yeah, that's right.
And
Terrence and Darby.
Terrence and Darby for sure. Who else? Who would be? I mean, he's just to me the biggest alien of them all.
Yeah. Russell's pretty close, man. Russell White's pretty close.
And Russell White, yeah, he's another one that could never. Russell White with how fast he is. People are like, well, the vocal runs he does. Get over it because he does it so, it's so hard. The fact that he does it so well. It's like, how can you not appreciate that? It's so good. So, and he sings so high. I mean, a lot of that stuff, if you listen to Russell White on YouTube, go listen to him. All up around E5 a lot of the time. Just hanging there. Hanging out. Yep. Singing E5, C sharp to E5, just in that area.
And so in tune.
Yep. And he's playing keyboard at the same time. He's playing piano or organ
Yeah, he's got that Joe Redder where he just sounds mixed and mastered without anything.
Yep, everything's live. That's another thing that bugs me. Like when I hear people go, oh, he didn't sound that good, or if you're with me, you didn't sound that good. I'm like, I was doing it live. Okay, give me a break. I'll go record it piece by piece. I'll auto tune it, and then it will sound to your liking. But that's when you show someone. Whenever I show someone Joe Redder or Russell or those guys, I'm like, remember, this is one take. This is live. This isn't overdubbed anything. Do you know how impressive that is? Yeah. All of that Russell White stuff is all live. You can, downloaded and put him in my iTunes, but you can watch him actually singing live. It's not cutting and pasting. That's nuts to me. That good.
And I know I'm joeing out, but Joe's the same.
Yep.
The most impressive things I've ever seen that dude do is when he's sitting in a room and someone's playing acoustic guitar for him. There's no microphone. It's just a camera.
Yep.
And swear some guy has stuck condensers, like compression, auto-tune, everything, reverb all over his voice. And it's like he just sings so perfect.
Yeah. No, he's...
You need to get him on the podcast, man. I don't know how, but he needs to do it.
I think I told you we did that one on Father's Day. We talked for like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
There she is.
Oh, you scared her. Put a shirt on.
I was scared. But we talked on Father's Day for like an hour and a half, and I said, this was Joe. This is what the podcast will be like. You're like, all right, I'll do it. So I think it's gonna happen.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, cool, man.
All right, man. I think we've covered. Yeah. Well, I thought we covered everything like 10 minutes ago. So now we've covered an extra at least 10 minutes.
I think that's good.
We were fairly professional. There wasn't that much profanity.
No, I drank coffee.
You didn't wear a shirt.
I didn't wear a shirt.
We're not on video, so that's fine.
Yeah. I think we're good.
Cool, man.
You didn't. Your accent wasn't too overpowering.
Well, I was trying to get in my Cali girl accent.
Yeah,
yeah.
So you're a Southern girl now? What is that? Oh, wait.
I had to do a musical called Legally Blonde, so I've been trying to copy that accent. So I'm like, this sounds like Daniel. Daniel sounds like this.
How long is that going? You're playing guitar in that, right?
Oh, it was just a high school thing, man. It was only like a couple of days, but it's 6 months worth of work just because the score's so difficult.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that was intense. But it was good. It was good.
You got to put some videos. Oh, you've been putting videos up of you singing and playing guitar, but you should put some of the other things that you shred in guitar too, because you're real good at that stuff.
Yeah, but I'm bored with that. You know when you get too good at something? Like me with guitar? Like me with guitar and tennis? I'm just too good at it.
Yeah.
I need to do
tennis, I mean, that's really good for you. I'm proud of you. Wow. Your poor wife.
Don't give me those eyes.
Your poor wife. I know that's why you took up the Muay Thai, because you were like, I got to man up for my wife a little bit, because she's like watching me play tennis, you know.
I'm so impressive, though, like when I play tennis.
Yeah. Oh, get down.
Like a couple of Muay Thai, I'm so hurt. Every time there's just bruises all over. You should see my arms, man. They're ruined.
You're still going like twice a week, whatever it is?
I'm trying to go 3 times a week now.
Oh, there she is.
No, I don't know what she's doing. I think she's trying to avoid you. She's
trying to sneak by.
Yeah, so she doesn't have to talk to you. And she's only 7. Imagine what women your age think of you.
Creep.
Yeah.
They just call me the creeper.
Yeah.
All right, this is it. I'm going to shut this thing off.
Man.
All right. That was Luke Streeter, everybody, from Australia.
A little island down under.
And this was Real Singers on Singing number 12 with your guest, Daniel Formica. Wow, that sounds amazing.
Daniel Formica.
So cool. All right, my million listeners, soon to be 30 million. Thank you so much, and I'm out.